Segment 1. The derelict space station loomed in the void, its skeletal remains swallowed by darkness. Its distress beacon had been screaming into nothingness for years. The crew of the USS Eclipse docked, drawn by curiosity and greed. The station's corridors yawned open like a dying beast. Captain Reeves led the way, his boots echoing in the empty halls. The air was thick, tainted with the scent of something long dead. Blood, blackened and congealed, streaked the walls. Symbols, carved deep into metal, pulsed as if breathing. Dr. Langley scanned the logs. The last entry: "We let it in. Now we are it." A whisper slithered through their comms. No one had spoken. Carter turned, breath hitching. "Something just touched me." A rasping breath answered from the dark. The emergency lights flickered, revealing a figure at the end of the corridor. It had no face, just raw, bleeding flesh where eyes should have been. Then it lunged. Carter fired. The bullet passed through as if through mist, but the figure screeched. A sound that scraped against their minds. The ship trembled. Shadows elongated, twisting into grasping fingers. Reeves pulled Carter back. "Run! Now!" They sprinted, but the corridor stretched endlessly. The walls pulsed, their metal shells shifting into something organic. Langley collapsed, clutching her skull. "It's inside my head! It's rewriting me!" A door loomed ahead. They crashed through, into a room filled with floating bodies, their mouths stretched in silent screams. One body turned its head, cracking bones as it whispered, "Join us!" The door behind them sealed shut. The lights flickered, revealing something crawling along the ceiling. It had too many eyes. The floating corpses moved, their fingers twitching, their necks jerking at unnatural angles. Carter pounded on the door. "Let us out!" A voice echoed, soft as a breath. "There is no out." The walls bled, dark ichor spilling from unseen wounds. One corpse twisted midair, its lips peeling back in a grotesque grin. "You brought it with you." Reeves turned to Langley. Her face was slack, her eyes black pits. The shadows wrapped around her, dragging her backward. Her scream was swallowed by the abyss. The floating corpses laughed, their mouths stretching impossibly wide. Carter grabbed Reeves. "We have to move!" The shadows followed, whispering secrets only the dead should know. Reeves and Carter bolted, their footsteps drowned by whispers. A cold hand clutched Carter's ankle. He was yanked into the dark. Reeves turned. Carter was still there, but his skin sagged, his jaw unhinging wider than humanly possible. "Captain, I see it now." His voice was layered, 1,000 voices speaking at once. His chest split open, something crawling out. Reeves fled, heart hammering. He reached the command deck. The monitors flickered to life. They showed the inside of his shuttle. Something was already there, waiting. A rasping sound behind him made his blood freeze. He turned slowly. The shadows had taken Carter's shape. "You can't leave," it whispered, grinning. The shuttle controls were dead. The distress signal blinked. From inside, Reeves turned. A figure sat in the pilot's seat. It wore his face. "You shouldn't have come back," it whispered. Reeves's mind reeled. His reflection in the glass was smiling, but he wasn't. His hands moved without command, reaching for his own throat. "It's too late," his own voice murmured. The whispering rose to a deafening scream. The walls that closed in, flesh-like and pulsing, the ship shuddered, as if it were alive. 1,000 unseen eyes blinked at once. The air itself hummed, carrying an alien hunger. Darkness swallowed the ship. Reeves gasped, suffocating as reality twisted. He saw glimpses of other versions of himself, trapped in infinite loops. They clawed at the walls, screaming. A shadow loomed over him, massive, featureless, endless. It whispered in a voice older than time. "You are ours." Reeves' body unraveled, His existence stretched thin. He wasn't dying. He was becoming. His thoughts fractured, memories dissolving like sand. Hands reached from the dark, pulling him deeper. The ship's whisper grew louder, until it was all that remained. His last coherent thought, I was never alone. The void swallowed him whole. The USS Eclipse drifted, empty. The distress signal continued, looping endlessly. A new crew arrived, drawn by the call. Their ship docked. The airlock hissed open. A whisper greeted them. You are seen. A shadow flickered at the edge of the light. Something moved inside the walls, waiting. The ship let out a deep, guttural groan. A fresh trail of blood led into the corridor. The lights flickered out. A scream was cut short. Reeves woke up, or thought he did. He was back in the shuttle, Earth looming before him. For a moment, he dared to believe he had escaped. Then he noticed the reflection in the glass. It wasn't mimicking his movements anymore. It turned its head before he did, grinning. A sharp crack filled the air as his bones twisted. The last thing he heard was his own voice whispering, You never left. The reflection reached out. Reeves felt his own hands wrap around his throat. The last thing he saw was his own face smiling down at him. Darkness claimed him. The eclipse remained, waiting for the next.